Hi, I'm Jennifer Potter, Executive Director of Be Well Texas. Too many people are struggling alone these days, and alcohol and drug deaths are increasing. We started Be Well Texas to offer high-quality, science-based addiction treatment and recovery services anywhere, virtually or in person. In many cases, there is no cost for treatment or medications if you don't have insurance. Really. Welcome to Be Well Texas. We're glad you're here. Visit bewelltexas.org.
Welcome to the Gamblin Gauchos. I'm Rob Bro. He's Kyle Jacobson. Potentially Money Mainville joining later on. If not, we'll get to basketball in the midweek. The Barnett Howard one down. The Barnett, Howard, and Williams rundown. It's in my head now. I can't say it all the way through. Looks like this tonight. Conference Championship Week. The CFP selection show, Alabama crying like little babies, not even to mention Lane Kiffin and Ole Miss fans, the SEC in general, plus a Liberty Bowl matchup for Texas Tech, as well as some other bowl matchups across the Big 12. Let's start with the conference championship games. It was Arizona State hammering Iowa State. Was that a surprise? I mean, I picked Iowa State to win. It was a little bit of a surprise that Jordan Tyson wasn't as big of a factor as I thought he would be missing. But Cam Scadaboo ran wild on Iowa State. And that's something you mentioned in the midweek episode that you thought could be a potential for Iowa State. But I think we both ended up picking the Cyclones.
Yeah, Rob, I'm going to do something that I enjoy doing, as you know. A quote I've shared, I think, with you and with our listeners on the podcast is that there's always a high road to take. Sometimes you just got to be the bigger man to see it. Now, I could get on here and say that Arizona State blew out Iowa State, which was your pick to win the Big 12. And I could make some sort of case that ultimately you weren't even close. But I'm not going to do that. My pick was, by the way, I don't know if you can hear my kids shrieking out there. They're fine, I promise.
I can't.
My pick was actually not even close. Like, they were out in early October.
Yeah.
A 16-team league. It's very hard to pick the winner, right? Especially when your league's probably most prominent feature is parity and unpredictability. The fact that you even had a team in the championship game that was like, I don't know, I think they were maybe 1.5 point dogs is pretty impressive. So it's not quite where Rob was right, but it was where Rob was a lot closer to right than Kyle. And so we need to acknowledge that. In hindsight, I guess it doesn't surprise me because Arizona State has been on such a tear, but it was surprising in the moment because I thought Iowa State was a pretty complete team. I thought that was going to be a competitive game. I think that in some ways, either team winning in blowout fashion might actually be a good thing for the conference. And what I mean by that is you've gotten very little credit for everybody being kind of equal at the top. I think it's fair to say you had 4 teams in this conference in that top tier that were all roughly the same. Like any given Saturday, BYU, Colorado, Iowa State, Arizona State could beat each other. Probably depends on venue and all that good stuff. But it always seems that conferences that have somebody that can beat everybody else in their conference are the ones that get credit. Like the Big Ten probably wouldn't have as much shine if all 4 of USC, Penn State, Oregon, and Ohio State were 10-2. It looks better when Oregon goes 13-0 against other teams that are 10 or 11-2. So I don't know. Arizona State, a little bit of momentum now going into the playoff. Because Clemson wins, they get the bye. And we're going to get into all this playoff talk and conference prestige conference standing, but it's frustrating that some group texts I'm in, they just treat Arizona State, Indiana, Clemson like a bye. Like they pull up the bracket and they're like, well, yeah, Texas is going to the semis. I'm like, well, they have to win 2 games first. That they're going to be favored in, no doubt, that they'll probably win. Um, but I don't know. I wouldn't totally count out Arizona State with as well as they finished the season. They have 2 losses. Their coach, made a pretty vocal case that they're 11-1 with their starter. Do you remember who that one was to?
I was trying to remember. I do know that he was 11 or outside of Lubbock. So I guess, is that Texas Tech?
Yeah, I mean, I guess to beat that team, it'd have to be somebody pretty good. So, yeah, Texas Tech. We'll go with that. But yeah, I mean, like the committee, they took into consideration quarterback health last year. I, to me, I think they did that as an excuse to put Alabama in, not, because they wanted to be consistent or actually weigh that as a factor. So, I think Arizona State got the bye because Clemson won, not because they took into account quarterback health. But yeah, I wouldn't count them out, man. They're hot, and that Texas defense is really freaking good. So I'm not saying Arizona State's going to beat them, but I think I would be a little surprised if Arizona State just gets steamrolled in the playoff. And I'm not a big conference pride guy, but it's hard not to watch College Game Day and some of the discourse on Twitter and see the disrespect for anybody that isn't quote unquote power two. And it makes it easier that Arizona State is not a rival of yours. Like, I don't think I would be rooting for Baylor or TCU in that spot. But I'm agnostic enough toward Arizona State that I hope they do actually go on a really good run here and hopefully with that earn a little bit of brownie points for the Big 12. So all that to say, yes, I was a little bit surprised the conference championship game was a blowout. I think maybe that did help with how Arizona State and the conference as a whole might have been perceived. And I don't want to get too far ahead of ourselves. I don't know if we're ready to talk playoff stuff, but I think BYU, if you did a blind resume test, they had just about as good of a case as a lot of other teams that were considered bubble teams or that, you know, fan bases, coaches think they got snubbed. But of course, they were never realistically in the picture there because they play in the wrong conference, which is unfortunate.
Yeah, let's hold on that real quick. Clemson did win. They beat SMU. They held on against SMU, made a 56-yard field goal at the end. You and I picking Clemson preseason. That looked dead in the water until about 2 weeks ago. Then Miami fell off. Tough to see. So you and I picked that one correctly. And I believe BJ Simmons had SMU there. No, Miami. He had Miami. So again, both of us correctly picking that one. In the SEC, Georgia beats Texas, again, kind of holding on in overtime. And with a quarterback that came in, couldn't lift his throwing arm, the linebackers were 4 yards off the ball in goal line. I did not understand that. He was not going to throw that ball. He was handing it off. But they were still respecting the play action there. I didn't get that. Maybe they thought he was faking coming in and he was going to hit him with the pop pass. But Georgia winning the SEC championship. And then Oregon, again, kind of holding on, but probably the closest to a big win besides Arizona State's beating Penn State. And Penn State losing, still in. Texas losing twice to Georgia, still in. And SMU losing, still in. Iowa State, not even close. Didn't even come up on the show. Same with BYU. Those are the Power Four champions. Boise State took care of UNLV. They're in as the 3 seed. And just to say it, Army dominating Tulane on the back of Bryson Daly, Captain America from Abernathy, America in West Texas. It's all West Texas. Shout out to Bryson Daly. Okay. Let's get to the selection show because before we break down the bracket, I do want to talk about some of Nick Saban's comments. Where he gets on there, and this is the first. Now he's been doing it for weeks, but this is the first today I saw it. Him talking about strength of schedule and saying it's not important to ever schedule a tough out of conference now because they don't take into account strength of schedule. Now, I've struggled with this all day, and I feel like I'm taking crazy pills. It's kind of like you with the smash burgers. Did Alabama lose a non-conference game against a tough opponent?
No, they beat 5-7 Wisconsin, South Florida, Mercer, and
Western Kentucky.
Western Kentucky.
And Mercer was 11-1, but that's the only Power 4 team they played, or a Group of 5 team for that matter. I saw another tweet after the show that Alabama moving forward will never not schedule 2 Group of 5 teams. And my thought was, moving forward, you're already doing that. And an FCS team.
Yeah, I'm not. There's multiple parts of that I don't understand. Nobody. You didn't not get in because strength of schedule. You didn't get in because you lost 3 games.
Yes.
I promise you, there's no talking head at ESPN. There's nobody on the committee who thinks that your strength of schedule was inadequate in the SEC. If anything, they overinflate the value of some of the teams that you beat, and you get more mulligans than you should when you lose because of your perceived strength of schedule. 2, like you said, they didn't have a tough non-con this year. They didn't lose any non-con games. They missed the playoff because they went 5-3 in conference. Number 3, the SEC already doesn't really do non-conference scheduling. If they schedule a Power 4 home and home, it would be their 9th game against a Power 4 opponent because they only play 8 conference games. So that then puts them on par with the Big 12 and Big 10 in terms of number of Power 4 opponents faced. And then after that, they play 2 G5s and an FCS, sometimes an FCS in November. So it's a completely empty threat to say we're going to pick up our ball and go home. No more scheduling home and homes with Texas Tech or Arizona State or Utah. Like, sorry, you guys mostly aren't doing that to begin with. And when you are, again, it's just your 9th game against a Power 4 opponent, which we're all doing, and then scheduling a Power 4 non-con if we can. West Virginia, to their credit, I'll give them a lot of credit. They usually schedule 2 Power 4 home and homes outside of their 9-game conference schedule. So recently that's been Penn State and Pitt on top of 9 Big 12 games. So this well, we're not going to play anybody tough ever again. You're already below the standard at that point. Like, if you play a Power 4 non-con, it's just your 9th game. We're already all doing that. And so I wish them the best. If Alabama needs to schedule Mercer and Western Kentucky and USF and the equivalent 4 times instead of 3, be my guest. You'll still get 2 mulligans, even if you lose to LSU, Georgia, Texas, whoever in conference play. As long as you take care of Vandy, Kentucky, South Carolina, you'll still be in. It's just that you lost 3 of those games this year, and that's why you got left out. You got exactly what you deserved, like any other 3-loss team in your exact spot would. That's I feel like I'm taking crazy pills too, and I have an Alabama fan in my replies trying to explain it to me. And I'm like, fine, if y'all want to schedule a joke non-con, I feel like you already do, but if you want to do that even harder moving forward, then be my guest.
Greg Byrne, the Alabama AD, had a tweet today discussing being left out of the CFP. I'll paraphrase some of it. Disappointed with the outcome we felt. We were one of the best 12 teams in the country. We had an extremely challenging schedule, and we recognized there were 2 games in particular that we did not perform in well as we should have. That's 20-point favorites to Oklahoma, which was a loss. Got hammered. And a loss to Vanderbilt, who is also squeaking by into a bowl game. With that said, we would need to see how strength of schedule would be reevaluated by the CFP. With this outcome, we will need to assess how many non-Power 4 non-conference games make sense in the future to put us in the best position to participate in the CFP. They played one against 5-7 Wisconsin. He got community noted, by the way.
And they won. They didn't miss the playoff because they lost to Wisconsin.
Yeah.
And
they won.
I really hope they do it, because what they're doing when they say we're not going to schedule Big 12 or ACC teams anymore is admitting that those conferences have quality teams up and down them. So do it. Schedule 4 FCS games, and enough with Vanderbilt would win 10 games if they were in the conference next door, or our 11th place team would win the Big 12. Okay, then like it shouldn't be a problem for you to schedule 4 of those games in the non-con. Cakewalk through it like you say you will. But now you're admitting that there's a high enough likelihood you would lose one of those games, and you already know, I guess you're going to lose several in SEC play, and so you're not scheduling. It would be an admission that, in my opinion, makes the Big 12 and ACC's case for themselves, which is that we have high caliber teams in this conference, so much so that the mighty SEC, Alabama of all programs, the most dominant college football program in the history of the sport, is afraid to play us. I really hope that they do it.
And this is why the Super League, how everyone expects it to happen, will never happen. Alabama doesn't want to play 12, 11 Power 4 teams. They don't want to play 4 Big 10 teams and 8 SEC teams. They just don't want to do it. What they're going to do is continue to play G5s and try to make the playoff as it exists with everyone together more pro SEC, which I just don't understand how they can do it. Just win your games. Quit being a bitch and win your games. That's all you have to do.
Can I ask you a follow-up question, Rob?
My bad. Family show.
No, that's okay.
No, I apologize.
If the shoe fits. Can I ask you a follow-up question?
Yeah.
The SEC used to have 10 teams in it. Who forced Arkansas and South Carolina on them to go to 12 teams, and therefore who forced them to play an additional game, the conference championship game, back in the 90s?
Yeah, and who forced Missouri and Missouri to flip? Who forced A&M to flip? Who forced Texas and Oklahoma to flip?
Because I think we can all admit, on average, in a 16-team conference, the schedules obviously vary widely, but on average, the SEC schedule got harder by adding Texas and OU to that conference. Can we agree on that?
Yes.
The SEC is obviously victimized now in hindsight by this decision. Who forced that upon them? Who do we need to hold accountable for adding Texas and OU to their schedule?
Well, I think the list starts with the SEC and ESPN.
Yeah, they voted unanimously for that. In fact, they acted behind everybody else's back to undermine the stability and health of other conferences for the pleasure of adding Texas and OU. And now it's too hard to get through it without losing at least 4 games. Please put us in the playoff anyway. No. You get what you deserve. You're 9-3. Go play 9-3 Duke in the bowl game. You get exactly what you deserve. For once. You know, Rob, there's a quote, not to get political on here. There's a quote that when you're accustomed to privilege, equality feels like oppression. That is what it's like. We're Alabama. We were supposed to get 3 mulligans. Nope. You're being treated like anybody else would. You played 9 Power 4 games. Most everybody else plays 10. You lost 3 of them. Go play 7-5 Michigan in whatever bowl game. You get exactly what you deserve.
And it's even funnier that Texas gets a cream SEC schedule where they don't play anybody that finishes ranked. I asked my Texas friend today who they played, and Kentucky and Vanderbilt were on the list. He goes, yeah, but they were on the road. So you have 4-8 Kentucky and 6-6 Vanderbilt. And to even say that Vanderbilt was tough this year, well, they beat Alabama. Yeah, well, Alabama might not be very good. You have this cycle where the SEC sits up there and gets to tell everyone they're better than you. And the AP voters listen to them, and in the preseason, they rank the SEC favorably. And now, because of the preseason rankings, everyone believes that they're better than you. And so the analytics that take into the rankings and the FPI and all that, that it's a vicious self-cycle that everyone just believes it's marketing. It's a marketing scam.
It is. So, like, you mean to tell me Mizzou wasn't a top 12 team this year, whatever they started this year? And
Yes, that's what I mean to tell you.
it is. So nobody, and I mean nobody, benefited more from preseason rankings this year than Texas. And here's what I mean by it. At the time these games were played, now, like most years, if you just blindfolded me and showed me Texas's schedule, I'd have been like, yeah, that's pretty tough. So they get a top 10 Michigan team on the road. They win that game. It looks really impressive in September. Then they get top 20 different points in the season, top 20 A&M and OU. OU was ranked 18th when they played that game at a neutral site, so that looks like a great win. And then they get top 25 Vanderbilt, a joke. They were favored in that game by I think 24 points against a top quote unquote top 25 opponent. And then they got top 25. Who else did they beat? Somebody else with a joke ranking. I can't remember. They beat like 5 teams that were ranked at the time. None of them finished ranked in the final college football playoff poll. And in fact, the 5 teams that they beat that were ranked at the time finished, I think it was either 17-22 or 17-23 combined against Power 4 competition. So it isn't just like, oh, well, they were ranked until Texas knocked them out. No, they were sub 500 teams that everybody decided in July was going to be good. And they put nothing on the field this year that insinuates that they're a top 10, top 15, top 20 team. They're nobodies. But every week when Texas lines up against, oh, they're ranked number 12, they're ranked number 18, and Texas handles them, they get credit for beating a team that's on par with, I don't know, UCF. That's the reality. But at the time, it looks like, oh, they beat mighty Michigan. They beat the mighty Oklahoma Sooners. No, they didn't. They beat some crap team, and they get all the credit in the world for it. And then they lose to the same team twice. I kind of feel bad for Georgia, because if Georgia has to line up against Texas again, they're going to have to beat the same team 3 times to win the national championship, which is unheard of in this sport. And Texas, they're like, well, the first 2 didn't matter. We beat 0 other ranked teams to get here. And now we get, after 2 mulligans, a 3rd crack at it to become national champions.
So I think the committee got it right by putting SMU in there instead of Alabama. I think South Carolina had a better argument, but I still don't think it's a better argument than SMU. By the way, SMU's one loss outside of the conference championship game was
At home against BYU, who tied for, I guess, 3rd place in the Big 12.
but they hadn't figured out Ken Jennings was the quarterback yet. Okay.
Like part of that is on coaching, like your result as a team is based on several different factors. One of them is, can the coach figure out the right guys, put them in the right positions? You don't just get a do-over because the coach got that wrong. But yeah, I think BYU had a decent case. Like, if it would have gone out to 16 teams and they didn't make a 16 team playoff, I think they would have had every right to be outraged. I don't know if they, in the current format, were top 12. I think they were close. And I think if they wanted to make a case for themselves, they could. And it would be a reasonable enough case. But that's not going to be the narrative about the Big 12, even though we had 2 teams kind of in a play-in game in the conference championship and a 3rd game in waiting that had, in my opinion, a resume that's on par with a lot of teams that did wind up making it.
All right, so thoughts on the actual CFP bracket. A lot of people are saying that Oregon gets screwed because they won the Big Ten. Joe Klatt among the ones banging the drum for Fox. I will say it's incredibly easy to see who signs the talking heads paychecks, because if you're on ESPN, you up the SEC. If you're on Fox, you're upping the Big Ten. The Big 12, unfortunately, is on Fox and ESPN, so nobody's stumping for the Big 12. Just an observation there. All right, so Oregon will have to face the winner of Tennessee, Ohio State. Arizona State in that side of the bracket will have to face the winner of Clemson, Texas. Boise State, the 3 seed, will have to face the winner of Penn State, SMU. And Georgia will face the winner of Notre Dame, Indiana. Notre Dame, Penn State, Texas, Ohio State hosting those first 4 games. And I said this a couple of weeks ago. That 5 seed, I don't know if I said it on the Gauchos, but that 5 seed has the best, that 5-11 matchup, I guess, has the best road to the playoffs because you're getting the 3 or the 4, which would be ranked higher than you. And then the 6 seed or whoever it is down there at the bottom also has a pretty good shot. The 7 seed, I think Notre Dame, who would eventually have to beat Georgia in the second round. But if they can do that, again, you're facing, I don't know. It seems to me that 5 seed's a pretty good spot to be. We'll see if they can stop Ashton Jeanty.
I think Notre Dame is the number 1 run defense in the country in terms of yards surrendered per rush.
Yeah.
So that would actually be unstoppable force, immovable object kind of matchup. I think Ohio State, Tennessee is a pretty compelling matchup. I think Indiana, Notre Dame, I don't want to say in-state rivals there, but that's a cool game, a cool quarterfinal game or first-round game to have on a college campus with 2 fan bases presumably being pretty closely located there. So I think there's some intrigue. It is amazing to hear some of the talking heads, like I mentioned earlier, just be so dismissive of some of the teams that made this format as if they just completely don't belong. They provide nothing other than a bye week for their opponent wherever they're matched up in the bracket. It also just seems bad for the sport. Like when you have ESPN talking heads, it seems bad for business for them to talk down on the Big 12 so much and to have Desmond Howard or Paul Feinbaum or whoever say, why are we even picking this game? Nobody cares about, I think it was Feinbaum 2 years ago said nobody cares about TCU Kansas State in the Big 12 championship game. I don't really get it in terms of framing some of these matchups this way. If I'm them, I'm at the very least framing it as like a David and Goliath Cinderella story potential. You can acknowledge that there's a favorite without being like, well, this one's going to be a total dud. This is a cakewalk. We know who's going to advance from this one. Like, aren't you trying to build up viewership and add intrigue to this? So I kind of hope there's some chaos this year. I hope teams like Indiana and Big 12 and SMU and the ones that aren't expected to do anything at least win 2 or 3 of these to get over this sense of like if you've got a Big 10 patch on your jersey, there's just no way you can lose a game to one of these lowly teams from a different conference or whatever the narrative is. So I'm kind of curious to see this first iteration of the 12-team format. Some of it doesn't make sense to me, like that you don't reseed like the NFL does. You know, the team on a bye, it always depends on like does the 4 or 5 or the 3 or 6 win in terms of who they play next. To me, you could do that, especially because the next ones are all like neutral location
Yeah.
bowl sites. I don't know. Maybe they make that adjustment going forward. It's just kind of funny to me to see this before we've even seen this unfold once. People are already like, "Well, do away with the auto bids, do this, and make sure that 7 SEC teams get in next time." And it's wild. I hope that the 12-team playoff. I hope the format lends itself to a successful, interesting playoff, so that they don't overthink it and totally overhaul it, revamp it before we have a chance to let this system work for a little while.
I mean, how many decades did the NFL have a 12-team playoff that they could have drawn inspiration from, and they kind of do it this way? It doesn't make a lot of sense from. And now you have a 14-team playoff in the NFL. You could have drawn inspiration from. I do think that the auto bid will remain, but the auto seeding at the top 4 will die out pretty quickly. I think you should just be seated where you're seated, which I guess doesn't matter much in this sense, but I do think that'll happen quickly, and then I think you'll go to 14 or 16 fairly quickly as well.
I know this isn't going to happen, but I would love to move away from this committee.
Yes.
It's just the rules applied and the philosophies employed are all over the place. Like last year, Georgia goes into the SEC title game 12-0. They lose to a good team, and they fall all the way out. And this year, it was this untouchable thing. Like, well, you can't fault SMU at all for losing in the ACC championship game. Like, okay, well, why not? It happened to Georgia 365 days ago. And I'm kind of fine. I see arguments both ways. I'm fine if you want to hold that loss against them. I'm fine if you don't, but just pick one and go with it so that the standard is the same across the board every year. But they're clearly just making it up as they go along, which is why they can leave out a 13-0 team and then consider putting in a 3-loss team a year later. I know there's more spots to be had. I know this is a pipe dream. I would love 8 10-team conferences. Every single conference plays a 9-game round robin. And then the 8 conference championship games are a de facto 16-team playoff. The winners of all the 8 conferences go to the playoff. Nobody has to worry about what a computer ranking says, what a committee says. Everyone controls their own destiny. Round robin format, everybody plays the same schedule. You have some geographic balance. You have some intrigue. To me, that makes a lot of sense. And I know that's why we'll never probably see it.
Yeah, it's not gonna happen. I will say I would. I mean, it sounds fascinating, but it's one of those utopian. It's like not to be political, but Animal Farm or something where you
Well,
have the
and
utopian existence, and it's just not like it would get bastardized, and it just wouldn't work out like you wanted it to.
yeah, maybe so.
I
You
will
know,
say though, if you just kept the current format and just went back to the BCS computers, I would agree with that as well.
I mean, we used to almost be there. Like, this was a long time ago, so fans may not remember, but a long, long time ago, it was generally, the SEC and the Southwest Conference, they go play each other in the Cotton Bowl. The Big East and the ACC go play each other in the Orange Bowl. The SEC and somebody else plays in the Sugar Bowl. And the Rose Bowl was Big Ten, Pac. Like, we're right there, folks. There's a New Year's Six or whatever it used to be. Add 2 more bowl games to it. Well, you don't even need that. It'd be 8 teams at that point because the conference championship games, and then 4 major bowl games that serve as the playoff. It could be done. There's just no appetite to do it. So,
Just a quick Texas Tech football note. Joe McGuire, this from Don Williams. Joe McGuire said the new Mac Leftwich, the offensive coordinator, met with the team tonight as players moved into the Womble Football Center. The main duty for Leftwich and Shieldwood this month will be evaluating players and staff and being involved with portal visits more than X's and O's bowl prep. As we talked about on the last pod, Justin Juice Johnson and CJ Ayu will call plays in the bowl. Analyst quarterbacks coach Kirk Bryant will step up with Zach Kitligon, and Darcel McBath will become the cornerbacks coach for bowl prep. The line in there that says evaluating players and staff, I wonder if there'll be turnover after the bowl game on the offensive and defensive sides. We'll see what happens there.
yeah, to me that seems like it needs to be a partly mutual decision. Like if you're the existing O-line coach, receivers coach, whatever. I mean, like you also need to make a decision. Is this an OC I want to work for? And I think the OC should have some control over, if my O-line coach, tight ends coach, whoever isn't up to snuff, then I want to be able to bring in my own guys. We do have a little bit of defensive coordinator is still forthcoming, but kind of a initial look at Mac Leftwich on the Patreon. Should have one up tonight for the defensive coordinator. Are we going with Shieldwood?
Yeah.
Okay. Shieldwood, just kind of an overview, look at their tenure of past stops, where they were strong, where they improved, the units they were coaching, all that good stuff. And then hopefully after some more time to kind of digest some film, a look at some actual tendencies and what it might look like X's and O's wise.
And where was that?
Patreon.com/Gamblin Gauchos. I heard from some sources that you forgot to plug that on the last Sunday night episode. So if
I think
anybody missed it
well,
last week, it's patreon.com/Gamblin Gauchos.
I think I forgot the 10th and 11th ones, but I think
Okay.
I covered 9.
So you did say patreon.com/Gamblin Gauchos.
A time or two.
And do they know that they get access to the Discord if they join?
The Discord and write-ups, a weekly midweek episode, and that's at patreon.com/Gamblin Gauchos.
All of that is at patreon.com/Gamblin Gauchos?
I think if you go to patreon.com/Gamblin Gauchos, you do get that stuff, yeah.
Okay, you'll see it there.
What's a $5 charge, but yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And I'll tell you what, we hit a milestone this week. I'm not going to tell you the number, but it's very, very excited to have you all there. It's very nice. Makes you feel good. All right. Let's get into some bowl games here. We'll start with TCU. There's some thought, okay, that Jeremiah Donati, who is now the AD at South Carolina, there is some thought that on his way out, because he was upset about the last time they went to the Liberty Bowl, that he declined the Liberty Bowl on the way out. I do not think that is true. I have seen from a few TCU media members that is not true, that they didn't decline anywhere. But that is the narrative being spun, that they would have been in the Liberty Bowl had they not declined it. But instead, they go they go to the New Mexico Bowl.
I have a couple thoughts on that. The first is, weren't we told that he was just like the goated AD and he's awesome? So surely he wouldn't do that to them, right?
Sure, yeah.
Second, if it were just about any other school, I might actually kind of feel bad for them, because Baylor, TCU Tech, and K-State I kind of viewed as a tranche of 4 schools that were all roughly equal in the bowl pecking order. The way they finished, Baylor probably number 1 out of that group, and I think they got picked first of that group to the Texas Bowl. But my math was, okay, the next 2 go to Liberty and Rate Bowl, and then whoever's 4th out of 4 there gets stuck with, it would either be Armed Forces or First Responder. So I'm just kind of, how did they not even get in one of those 2 and they wound up in New Mexico? It just seems totally random to me.
Well, I guess the Armed Forces Bowl is their home stadium, so they might have not wanted to go to that one. But I don't know why they didn't get in the First Responders.
I'll lob this out there. This is not an accusation, it's just a question. But once upon a time, I wish I could remember the year, maybe 2013, maybe 2012. Sonny Dykes went 9-4 at Louisiana Tech, and they did not play in a bowl game that year. Do you know why, Rob? Do you remember this?
Was it when he left?
No. They got an invite to a bowl game that they were too good for.
Uh-huh.
And they said, no thanks, we'll wait for a better offer. And one never came. So I don't know if something happened. It wouldn't be the first time it happened to Sonny Dykes, where it was like, hey, we better say yes to the New Mexico Bowl because there might not be another one. Or if he botched something else and then that was the only one left. I'm just saying it wouldn't be the first time. I'm pretty sure I have that story right about Sonny Dykes and La Tech, but I could be wrong.
Interesting. If you go to the Brett McMurphy Bowl Tracker, which I was keeping an eye on today, the First Responders Bowl is North Texas, Texas State. So they didn't pick a Big 12 team this year. And I want to say that's kind of like the Reserve Bowl, anyways. But I don't remember the New Mexico Bowl being a Big 12 tie-in either.
No.
Uh,
And I completely forgot about the Independence Bowl. Who wound up in that one?
Army and Marshall, that is a kind of a, hey, if there's not a Big 12 team, we'll pick somebody else kind of bowl as well.
So did K-State go Rate Bowl?
Yes. Let's go through them. We'll start at the top with the Alamo Bowl. That is BYU Colorado. That is Big 12 BYU and Pac-12 Colorado representing the Big 12 in this bowl game.
I like that because they basically finished tied. They can play for the Big 12 bronze medal.
Yeah, it's the it really is. Who gets third place in the Big 12? Up next will be the Pop-Tarts Bowl, which will be Iowa State, Miami. Another good bowl, in my opinion.
Yep, that should be fun.
We'll see if one of those receivers can be the MVP and pick which flavor of Pop-Tart they can eat.
I would guess Cam Ward not playing.
I would guess.
Sure that hasn't been announced yet, but he's a first round pick from what I've seen, so doubt he'll play.
Kansas State is in the Rate Bowl versus Rutgers. I'm glad we missed that one.
Yeah, I don't want to play Rutgers.
Nebraska going to the Pinstripe Bowl against Boston College.
Did Boston College play in that one last year? I think they did against SMU. That would kind of suck to go back twice.
Yes, it would. Then we already mentioned the Isleta New Mexico Bowl in Albuquerque, TCU, Louisiana Raging Cajuns. The Liberty Bowl, Texas Tech, Arkansas. We'll give some more thoughts on that in a second. Texas Bowl, Baylor, LSU. And then obviously Arizona State in the playoff, awaiting their opponent.
Where did West Virginia land?
I don't see West Virginia in a bowl. I guess with no head coach. Oh, no, they were announced earlier in the week. They were announced at the end of last week. It's the Frisco Bowl against Memphis.
This is maybe I just don't understand how bowls work, but TCU, okay, they missed out on one of the 3 bowls that group of 4 teams was going to go to, but how they didn't land at Independence, First Responders, or the Armed Forces Bowl, or the one that West Virginia is playing in, it's just weird to me.
Yeah, so the Frisco Bowl is on December 17th. The Salute to Veterans Bowl, Western Michigan, South Alabama, is on the 14th, which I believe is the day. When is Army Navy? Is that the 14th?
Yeah, that's a week from yesterday.
So it's on Army Navy Day, but it's not opposed to Army Navy. So West Virginia projected spread -6 against Memphis. Kansas State projected -8.5. A&M will play USC in the Las Vegas Bowl. A&M -4 projected. Syracuse, Washington State in the Holiday Bowl. That's an interesting one at -6.5 for Syracuse. Texas Tech, Arkansas, the projected spread here. Do you want to guess?
Texas Tech -1.
Arkansas -2.5.
Okay, interesting.
SEC. Iowa State, Miami projected spread.
I don't know. Are they building in Cam Ward not playing to the projected spread?
No.
Then I'll say Miami -5.
Miami -8.
Okay.
Colorado, BYU.
Colorado. Well, they might have some opt-outs too. Assuming everybody plays. Colorado -1.
-4. TCU, Louisiana.
Shoot, I don't know anything about Louisiana, but I'll say TCU -13.
11.5.
Okay.
And then Michigan, Alabama. Really in the ReliaQuest Bowl.
Alabama -7.
11. Baylor, LSU.
LSU -3.
4.5. And those are the bowls.
I didn't do too bad there.
No, not bad. The Arkansas Texas Tech game in Memphis at the AutoZone Liberty Bowl, December 27th. I believe it's at 6 o'clock Central. Could have been 6 Eastern. Let me check, actually. 7 o'clock Eastern, 6 o'clock Central. Have you seen Simmons Bank Stadium?
Yes. Well, I've seen most of it.
Yeah. The Texas Tech sideline. So you get your bowl allocation, and then there's just seats for sale, right? I would assume most of the bowl allocation is in the lower bowl that you can sell via your own ticket sales packages and whatever else, give away to your boosters, however that works. But beyond the concourse, how it's set up is there's one large, kind of like Tech Stadium, there's one large sheet of seats. The sheet of seats behind the Arkansas bench, to the top, fine, nothing going on. The whole middle section, I'm talking probably the 10 to the 10 sheet of seats on Texas Tech side, it doesn't exist. It's not that there are no benches or seats. You can literally see to the dirt behind the concourse.
You know, Rob, I'm going to admit to a minor crime here. Hopefully the statute of limitations has passed. But if it hasn't, I'll call our friends over at Barnett, Howard, and Williams, bhwlawfirm.com. Yeah, there it is. The stadium's gone.
That's a live construction cam view.
And if you go online, you obviously can't buy tickets for the upper section, so it's only the closer, not front row, but close to the field seats. One time, Rob, in maybe 2014 or so, I was at Wingstop. Hey, what are you doing? The joy of toddlers. Hang on.
You're good.
I'm not hiding. I'm doing a podcast.
You are hiding.
I was at Wingstop, and I just wanted water, and so I ordered my food, and I said, and I just want a cup of water, and they go, "Oh, we don't offer water cups." I was like, "Okay, that's fine. Like whatever cup, and I'll just put water." And they're like, "Well, we'll have to charge you." I was like, "No, because it's water. It's not my fault you don't have a water cup." So I told them, I was like, "Don't charge me for one." They didn't give me a cup, and then when they turned around to go cook my wings, I just took a cup, filled it with water. So I didn't steal any soda. But I was like, It's not my fault that you don't have water cups. I'm not paying for a soda when I just want water." If they don't give us a break on ticket prices, it's not our problem that you took out an entire section of the stadium and didn't have the foresight to move this game to wherever the Titans play or some other location for this year's game. But I'm not paying front row prices because you demolished all the other more affordable tickets. That's your problem, not mine. So I don't know. I haven't looked yet, but I really hope that they don't screw Tech fans out of some reasonably priced tickets because of their own construction and remodeling.
It would be cool to see Texas Tech fans just flood both end zones and make the red zone tough for Arkansas on both ends. But a lot of people don't like that view. I do. I prefer it. I'll be in the press box. So,
Oh, big flex. Mm. Yeah, I wonder how many Arkansas fans are going to be there. It's really close for them, but I don't get the sense that they're jazzed about this bowl game. And on that note, I'm going to say something about the entire sport kind of sucks right now because the sentiment among coaches, players, fans that every single matchup, every single bowl game is beneath them because they're not in the playoff is so annoying to deal with. Like I saw a Georgia Tech player who is claiming whoever their bowl opponent is a joke. Like you went 7-5 or 8-4 this year, you know? Like you don't really get to look down your nose at whoever you're playing in the bowl game. And Lane Kiffin obviously is doing this at Ole Miss. Saw Arkansas fans tweeting they should just decline the bowl game. You see that everywhere now. They're like, "Oh, just decline the bowl game." It's not beneath you. You're 6-6, and the only reason you're 6-6 is because you played multiple FCS and Group of 5 teams. And show up and play the game. I don't care if you show up as a fan or not, but this is not beneath you as a 6-6 program. But that mentality is so widespread now, and I hate it in college football.
Yeah, I talked to the executive director of bowl season, and he had the same sentiments that the perception of bowls has gone so downhill in the last, 10 years because of conference realignment and anything else going on and what they have back and forth kind of here. I still like bowls. I still like bowl season. We'll wrap it up here, Kyle. I will say this. I like the matchup with Arkansas. We'll have more on it in the midweek episode. Gamblin Gauchos, patreon.com/Gamblin Gauchos. We'll have more on that. We'll have the Aggie recap against Texas Tech in the midweek with Money Mainville. Just a point of emphasis here. If you want to join the Bowl Pick'em with the Gauchos, that link will be shared in the patreon.com/Gamblin Gauchos. We'll do it with our picadors. And what's cool is this year's Bowl Pick'em will be through bowlseason.com. Pick'em/bowlseason.com. I think it'll open tomorrow. But they've got some really cool prizes, including the best Bowl Pick'em will get free tickets to the national championship game next year. And we all know that'll be featuring Texas Tech. So join the Bowl Pick'em there at bowlseason.com. That'll be fun. And we'll enjoy it all the way there.
All right, we have a special guest on the podcast here. I'm not going to put her on camera but she says, she keeps saying, I want to talk to him. I want to talk to him. What do you want to say?
I want to talk.
You want to talk? Can you say Texas Tech?
Texas Tech.
Texas Tech.
Texas Tech.
What else do you want to say to the people? Okay. All right, are you all done?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, that's all she wanted to say. We can save any Smashburger discourse for Wednesday. Like if you don't want to pay for our transfer portal tracking or a breakdown on the coordinators, that's fine. You're going to want to pay for the Smashburger episode this week. So join us at patreon.com/Gamblin Gauchos if we haven't plugged that link already. And we have plenty of time for bowl prep, so maybe we can talk to somebody from Arkansas and learn a little bit about the Hogs. You want to talk again? Okay, say bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
All right, we can close off now.
All right, one final thought for me. Kyle absolutely folded on our pal off on Twitter. It's
I didn't fold, buddy.
you did, pal. I think you did.
Bye.
Did not sport.
All right. Bye to Gaucho and Gauchita there.
Bye.
All right. Love y'all.